Hello, everyone. Charlene Lee here, and I'm going to be talking today about one of my favorite topics, which is about career management. And in particular, I'm going to be sharing some of the best career advice I've ever gotten and then put them into one place because I'm constantly asked by people, so how do I advance my career? How do I think about this? And one of the things I would love for you all who are joining live, and also if you're looking at the stream later on, please share the best career advice that you have ever gotten. I mean, this could be early on in your career, it could be something you just heard yesterday, but I'd love to hear what are some of the ideas that you have gotten from this. And in particular, because I do believe that careers are such an important asset for us to manage. And I'll be sharing some of the my own journey in terms of career management. So I encourage you again to just share where you're coming from, but also share the best career advice you've ever gotten, advice, tips. And again, if you have any resources too as well, please share those as well. All right, let's get into this. All right. So one of the most interesting things, and I put this into the introduction, is that I feel like we just don't spend nearly enough time thinking about our careers. And we spend more time thinking about our Spotify playlists and managing them and organizing them and creating them and sharing them than we do on our careers. And I think that's a misplaced effort on time and resources because this one simple idea, and this is probably the most important advice I ever got. Your career is going to be the most important asset you ever manage. I'll say that again. Your career is the most important asset you will ever manage. Your career, your job, your prospects for the future are by far the greatest source of income and wealth for you in your entire life. And yet we spend almost no time on it. So the most important, and this is literally the most important piece of advice I've ever gotten. And this is the best course I took at Harvard Business School. And I got two very important key things that I'm going to share right at the very top here. And the first is look at it as an asset that you must manage. And that means investing in your career. And what I mean by that, it's not just the time, but it's also at the appropriate times to do assessments to understand how you are doing, where you are right now in your life, in your career. It means getting the expert help and coaches. If you are in a place that's stuck and you can't quite figure out how to move into the next area, but you need help trying to see yourself and understand yourself better. It means taking courses and taking classes. I'm just finishing up a class on how to create cohort-based classes. The class I took before that was about how to create a second brain with the computers and resources available out there. The classes I took before that was how to become an executive coach. So I'm constantly learning and expanding my skills, trying to figure out like what are the new places where I want to go and expand. And this is after more than 30 years in business. I'm still learning and investing in that career. It also means taking the time off, retreats as necessary, going off and learning with a group of people, having that time off. Bill Gates was famous for going to an island and having a retreat. I'm going on a retreat at the end of this month for executives who just think about things, take that time off, toss my phone and my computer into a box, lock it away for a week so that I can really focus on what is important. So that first idea is to, again, invest. Number one piece of advice I have is to invest in your career. The second thing I would say is to have a strategy. This is the second thing I took from that course at Harvard Business School, and that is to look out into the future. And it's great to be able to look out 5 years, but I don't know about you. I can't even figure out like what's going to happen tomorrow, 5 years from now. Instead, what they said is think about 18 months because no matter what you're doing, you can probably have a good idea what's going to happen 18 months from now. And think about in 18 months, where do you want to be? What are the work situations you want to have, the people you want to be working with, the types of work that you actually want to do? How different is it from what you do today? Have a plan then to say, I'm here today. How do I get to the next 18 months? Each quarter over the next 6 quarters, how will I be advancing my skills or my network or the people I work with or the things I do in my job to get me to that place 18 months from now? And the best thing to do is to keep it a rolling 18 months. Do that assessment quickly at the beginning of each quarter and say, okay, did I accomplish what I wanted to do this past quarter to get to my 18 months out? Now let me extend it another quarter and say, okay, where am I going to be now, 18 months from now? Write it down. Write it down and commit to this is where I want my career to be. And what I mean by that is it could be you in your existing job, learning new things, taking on new responsibilities. It could be I'm going to look for a new job because I want to continue to grow. So I want to just start with that because these are some of the quick ideas I want to say, but I have a bunch more here. I want to see here some of the advice that people have. I love this, isn't it? This great advice: never stop learning. So agree with that because the minute you stop learning, you stop growing. Let's see, what does Albert have to say here? There's nothing that could stop you to become what you want. You could start doing anything you love. From the next moment, you always get more than a present. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that, Amit. Vinay, one of my seniors said, learn one thing, not too many, and become master of that one thing. And no one in your city, state, or country compete with you in that particular thing. That's so interesting because this idea of expertise, of not just competence, but being able to be the person that someone turns to. And I think that's so true because if you can become that expert, then you can also become indispensable. So I think one of these ideas, again, is that how do you develop that competency, that excellence? And that goes to my third area, which is to schedule the time, to set aside the time. I mentioned before that when you are having this, putting together your 18-month strategy, to have that check-in. And I literally encourage you to put it on your calendar that this is going to be my career check-in time. Actually schedule it. So at whatever that time period is, it could be once a year at the beginning of the year. I'm doing this broadcast now halfway through the year because I think this is a really good time. It's not as busy as the holidays and the new year. This I find is a fantastic time at the mid-year point to take stock and say, half the year is gone. What have I accomplished? What do I want to do over the next year, over the next 18 months? So I schedule this time to sit back, go on my retreats, for example, really take that time to learn and invest in myself. But it's really taking that time to really assess. And this goes to my next point, my fourth point. Assessments are crucial. What's working for you? What's not working for you? And really be honest with yourself because honestly, if your job, as someone was saying to me, my job is pretty good. Like 80% of the time, it's great. But 20% of the time, I'm having to deal with all these junk and politics and things. And my feeling is if 80% of your time is spent doing something that you're doing that you really are feeling wonderful about, having a great impact on, then the 20% tax, so to speak, is a pretty good deal. That's a great job. It's very rare that you can find 100% of your job that you love doing. I will tell you, my pain is accounting. Just even though I have an accountant, still even going near the accounting is like my thing that I really don't like to do. So I try to minimize it, but I know at some point I have to do it. So it allows me though to do the stuff that I really love doing. So it's worth it. So think about what is your dream job? Define it. Write it down. Write down not the things that you're doing, but also the people you're working with. And most importantly, what is the impact you are having? Because when you're really clear about what kind of work really motivates you, gets you excited, then it becomes a focus for you to say, this is what I want to have. This is what I have in the future. And I can take strides now to be able to create this. All right, we have a couple other comments here. Let's see, Celia has great advice. Welcome from Madrid. Really good points to check like a manager too, to go and check in with your manager, I think is what you're saying. And really the key area here, and I'll talk a little bit about it in just a second, is what do you do as a leader to make sure that you are having a great job, but also that the people around you are developing their careers. Uh, let's see, Amal had said this, it was in Forbes today. The world breaks everyone, and afterwards, many are strong in broken places. Wow, that is an amazing thought to say that even if in the midst of chaos that we are all still going through so much with this pandemic, that you can be strong in those broken pieces, that here in this fragment here, will you rise up and become the leader that can create the change in that immediate community that you are in? So Celia, I think that your point is again that you want to make sure that this is available and you're going to share this with your team. Fantastic. And Amit, this is a great idea too, being open to connect, open to support beautiful people across the world. Thank you for that. And that goes actually right into my next point, which is connection, about building your network. This fifth piece of advice is extremely important because you cannot develop your career in a vacuum. You need to be thinking about if you're working inside a company, who are the internal networks and stakeholders you want to connect with? And also externally, who are the people in your network who you can go and find? And you may think, I don't have a network. Who can I go and talk to? You have family and friends. Those are your networks. I mean, you are constantly saying to people, hey, what are you doing? And they will ask back, what are you doing? You say, well, I'm working on my career. This is my dream job. This is what I'm looking for. And they may or may not be able to say, well, I came across something. I know somebody. You should talk to them because your friends and your family, the people you've worked with in the past, your schoolmates, have this relationship with you and they want to help you. But they can't help you unless you are very specific about what you want to have. So this is the key thing. If you go out and say, I'm open to doing anything, I could do X, Y, Z, or just, anything. Just if you have any leads, to send them to me. That's not going to be very helpful because they don't know exactly what to give you. And are they going to introduce you to somebody in the network where you may or may not be a good fit? This is why that dream job is so important. When you can, in writing, send it to somebody, when you can point it to a very clear idea, well, this is what I'm looking for. Thank you for asking how you can help me. This is exactly what I'm looking for. Something close to this would be fantastic. If you have any resources or contacts who can help me with this, I would deeply appreciate it. I have so many people who reach out to me, go, can I ask you, to help me with my career? These are people I know and love, worked with in the past, think very highly of, and they really do not have a clear idea, or they feel like they have to be open to anything. And what I have seen over my career is that when you're very clear about how you can help, and not just, this is what I want to do, but this is how I can help, then that is going to be absolutely key. All right. Let's see. Just take a little break here to see what Jay has to say. Jay, great to see you. Always have some great comments. I don't believe anyone is indispensable. Humility and self-knowledge are indispensable to trust and building relationships that take one beyond being indispensable. How about a mindfulness audit on a regular basis? So well done, Jay. Again, this is where I think that assessment is so important. Being mindful of what is there, what is not. I think the idea of being an expertise is not so much that you're indispensable, but that you are valued. Those are two very, very different things. And I think anybody wants to know that what they're doing is helpful, but also be aware of where those gaps are, to your point. So thank you very much for sharing that. And Amit, to the same point, emotional intelligence is going to be key in the era of artificial intelligence and automation. Recruitment is a human thing. So I can't agree with that more. I am a big fan of empathy and emotional intelligence being connected to artificial intelligence. And at some future live stream, maybe I'll talk about artificial empathy at some point. So thank you for that. Let me go on with a few more ideas here. The sixth thing is to make sure you start advocating for yourself. No one's going to ever give you the position just because you're standing there saying, hey, notice me. It's going out and saying, hey, I see this opportunity inside my organization, or I see an opportunity inside a new company. And go and you have to pitch yourself, you have to sell yourself. And this may sound horrible because this is not something we do every day. And it doesn't come from a point of humility and also of like, how do I go do this without sounding like an arrogant person, thinking I'm going to be the person who can solve your problems. This is actually to say, I see an opportunity here, an opportunity for change, an opportunity where I can potentially help and be of service. So this is not about me wanting to do my job. This is about me wanting to have an impact. And so the more that you can write your job description around how you will help, about how you can be putting it into the words of the person looking for that help. Imagine them looking for someone. I'm looking for someone who can help me scale my business. I'm looking for someone who can help me move my digital transformation forward. I'm looking for someone who understands how to bring a human element into the call centers. And you then write your dream job in that way. I'm passionate about scaling enterprises and helping them find the ways to put the processes in place to create that scale. Those are very specific needs then when you're matching your desire to serve with somebody who's looking for someone who can serve and have that impact. So this advocating for yourself means really about saying, how is it that you can help? How can you actually have an impact on somebody? And that's a very different type of conversation now. It's no longer selling yourself in terms like, hey, you want to buy me and my career and my skills. It's saying, I can help you. And that changes the tenor of every conversation. All right. I love this, Nathan, to just reinforce that success is bring value to the organization. So great way to summarize that. All right, just a couple more things that it would also encourage you to do. This is something that I have seen happen all the time. People will wait until they're qualified for a job before applying for it. So reading through the job requirements, like, oh, I only meet about half of those requirements. The other half I don't, so I can't apply for that job. If that job sounds like your dream job, I would encourage you to apply. Because think about it then as those job requirements as recommendations. I know that when I'm putting together those job requirements and job descriptions, I'm thinking about the ideal candidate. And I know I'm rarely going to come across an ideal, perfect candidate. Instead, I'm constantly making trade-offs and changes. Well, this candidate's really good at this, that part's good at that. How do I mash these together? Again, there's no perfect candidate. So if you're not perfect, but you think this would be a great job, you could really learn how to do it, you have ideas and strategies of how you could fill in those gaps, apply. Because and I find this so true for people, and especially women, especially people of color who may feel like, well, I can't risk going and applying for that job because, especially if it's internal, how would it look if I don't get that job? That I wasn't qualified. That would be a mark on me that I failed. Instead, thinking about it as this is me saying, have an ambition to be able to qualify for this job. And even though I'm not, I'm going to learn as much about that, prepare myself. So even if I don't qualify today, someday I will. So put yourself out there, put yourself on that stage, apply for the jobs that you're somewhat qualified for, but not completely, and see what happens. You never know. This is not to say go apply for jobs 4 levels up that you are clearly not qualified for. No, this is really places where you feel that you could add value, but you may not meet every single one of those requirements. All right, a couple other ones. I'm going to hold on the other ones. I see a couple other comments coming in here. Let's see. Dr. M is saying that, I'm trying to show his comments here. So Dr. M says that really need to press the reset button and recalibrate, thinking about that 18-month plan. That's super helpful. Thank you for that. Let's see who else we have here. Nancy, thank you for sharing this piece of advice. Best advice I received, if you find you are the only one pushing the huge boulder up the hill, let it go. Sounds so hard to do. And find somewhere where you are not the only one championing the cause. Great advice. I find this to be the case with so many disruptors, so many innovators, where it feels like you're the only person who can see that future. And you're looking around and going, why can't anybody else see this? And so many people were asking, like, how do I convince the rest of the organization to see this? I'm the only one who can see it. And my advice is usually to exercise the power of 2 feet. You got to walk out the door because after pushing and pushing, you still haven't found anyone who is going to be your ally to back you up. And you've made your best effort at doing this. And I believe you can. You need to go find somebody else, someplace else, who will really appreciate what you bring to the organization. I find that so many innovators stay too long at a job, too long trying to create that disruption in the place that frankly doesn't deserve them. And that can be really scary, especially during these times of turmoil and chaos. But I really encourage you to start looking around. All right, let me see. Another one from Nathan. Most true leaders are looking for people with humility and willingness to embrace wisdom. Absolutely. And I think the key caveat here is true leaders. It takes a true leader who's confident, who knows this is how you should be leading to be able to do that. And yet, the world is filled with so many leaders who are not comfortable with this, who are not comfortable with their own vulnerability. And so I encourage you that if you are in a space where you want to practice this, that you seek out the leaders who are going to be supportive of it. And Nathan just says, just be yourself. Great advice. Let's see. And Charles just wants to follow up by saying it's a whole different situation where there's no enabling environment to help you to improve your skill set. That is so true because if you're in a place that's not encouraging you and allowing you to grow and to learn, then it's not going to be a great place. And I'm going to be talking about that next week in terms of how to create that kind of environment. And let me go through and just talk about my couple other last pieces of advice. Um, the two situations I want to just talk about is if you are actively looking and if you're starting to think about creating your own company. Um, those are two very interesting times in your career. So if you are actively looking, this is what I mentioned before. Be really clear about what you are looking for. Uh, think about all the things in your dream job and flip it into not this is what I want to do to this is how I want to help. I just want to reinforce this. Make sure that you are writing that dream job description from the perspective of your new employer. And then, very importantly, look at your LinkedIn page and revise everything in that to reflect this. Revise your past experiences that reinforce how you can help. Look at that top statement and read about how you can help. I rewrote my LinkedIn page a few years ago to have this reflection to say, well, this is how I help leaders thrive with disruption, which is what I'm all about. And everything in there is not about who I am or what I do, but how I help. And that, again, is written from the reader's perspective. So if you're looking for a job right now, if you're thinking about looking for a new job, then definitely think about writing that dream job description, writing it from the employer's perspective about how you want to help them, and then make sure your LinkedIn page reflects that. The other situation is if you're starting a company. Now, I did this back in 2008 when I was sitting there going, I'm very happy at my job at my previous company, but I had been there for almost 10 years and my growth potential had really plateaued. And this was really hard. I was at Forrester Research and I was really happy there. Great environment, fantastic people, great culture. And yet the kind of jobs that I wanted to do just no longer helped me along my growth trajectory. And I looked around to some other companies and said, those weren't going to be it either. And I just went, I think it's time for me to take the dive into starting a company. And to explore that, I talked to as many people as I could about what are the realities of starting a company. And to be honest, I wish I had talked to more. I wish I had talked to as many people as possible and especially, get as much information as I could. But at some point, he's just got to do it. There's no point at which you will be ready. I talk to so many people who say, one day I want to start my business. And I'm going, well, what are you waiting for? Well, I got to take this course. I need to do these things. I'm like, how are they going to help you? And the reality is, at some point, when you're ready to start a business, when you're ready to start something, to make sure you're financially able to take on that adventure, take on the possibilities, explore the possibilities that it's not going to work out, and then dive in. Because the worst thing that happens then is that it doesn't work out, but you have your contingency plan and you're full and secure and knowing that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. But there's no better way to get started in a starting company than to do that. But everything that I mentioned before in your career has to be there, because if you're going to start a company, it is a big shift in your career that you have not talked about, thought about, and know 18 months from now, what could the world potentially look like and how you will prepare for that. All right, so let's see who else we have here as comments. Just want to make sure we're going through all of them. Nathan, you have some great topics. I'm not going to put them all up. But Nathan, I actually, this is a great comment. When you're hiring, Nathan, you say, I rarely look at CVs, but I rather look for interesting conversations to understand that this person is going to be a true leader. That's a great point. I am a big believer that your past experiences, like past investments, are not an indicator for future success. It's more about, how does this person think? Do they have the integrity to be that leader? Do they have the things that will add to my culture rather than being a culture fit? And I think this is especially true for degrees. Degrees are one marker of success, but they're not the only one. I love hiring people who are scrappy, who demonstrated that they can make something out of nothing, because frankly, in my organization, we're working constantly with constraints. So what can you do when you have very little? So let's see, I'm going through here. I think those are most of the other comments that we have here. So let's see. And Jay has this one other comment. Disruptors will inevitably have naysayers, perhaps even the entire organization. Does one walk or persevere? That is the key question. In the future, Jay, I will have a session on career management for disruptors, and that's a whole entire session in of itself. But the one thing I do want to leave here today, as we're closing out on time here, is that you have to think about that career. And to Jay's question, when is it a good time to jump? When is it a time to persevere and keep going? And unless you are constantly and consistently looking at your career with a lens to where you want it to be, it's really difficult to plan. I mean, think about if you were to come up into a situation where all of a sudden something changes around you. Well, without that plan and strategy to say, well, this is where I want to be, how does that now shift because of this current situation? Without that plan, without that strategy, without that 18-month plan, without this continual investment in yourself and your skills and your knowledge, you may be very, very stuck. So think about where you are in your career. Take the time to assess where you are. Know yourself. Take the time to do the self-assessments. Have the humility to look deep, deep, deep inside yourself and say, what really do I want to do? What kind of impact do I really want to have? How can I best do that? In what circumstances with the right people? How do I take my existing role in my organization and change it or expand it? Or do I need to leave and go into a different direction, joining another company or even starting my own company to achieve the impact I want to have? This is not easy. Careers are something that are unknowable. It's never clear exactly how that path is going to come out. I could not have told you that I would become an analyst and an author and be speaking and live streaming. Even just even 5 years ago, I would never have thought of doing something like this. even just a year ago, was just beginning to do this. And then when I graduated from business school, doing my first couple of jobs, never thought of becoming an analyst or an author. And yet, this is my dream job. I love what I do. I love the impact that I have. And I thank you for allowing me to come into your screens, into your lives, to be able to have that impact. Consider myself so lucky, and I'm so grateful for that. So think about the career you want to have, the impact you want to have. And I wish you all the best on finding that path, carving it out for yourself. Take the time to invest in yourself. It'll be the best things that you do in terms of that investment. All right, take care. And let's see, next week, just want to share that I'm going to be talking about my favorite little pet peeve about how to start your employee relationship right. There's a lot of hiring going on right now. People are bringing in people, you're having people coming into new roles. And how do you kick that off correctly? I'm going to talk about a very specific point of view about how we do this the wrong way and how to do it the right way in order to kick off that relationship in the best way possible. So I hope to see you all next week. And in the meantime, have a great day, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Take care. Bye bye.